All right, so what I'm going to do is just quickly walk you through the steps to actually download Revit onto your computer. Now, I've taught this class several times, and in the past I used to give out the links to all these, but for whatever reason, these links sometimes change. So instead, I'm just going to walk you through the steps on how I go about getting to these sites, right? And then it's no different than anybody else or what we all do, is we start off with Google. Now, I recommend that you Google Revit student download. Okay, if you do Revit download, it's going to take you to the professional version, which is a very expensive version to purchase. So make sure you type in student, okay? That's going to take you to the to the educational page. Sorry, you're going to want to go ahead and click on that first one, Autodesk Educational and Student Access. Click on that first one. That's going to take you to the educational page. Now, if you don't have an Autodesk account, you're going to have to create one. That's required. What I recommend everyone do is just watch this video, how it works. And this is to create the educational license. Revit gives every student a 1-year license for free. Okay, but you have to register your account as a student, and you have to follow the steps to activate your account as a student. Now, I could walk you through those steps to explain it, but Revit does it much better than I could actually do it. And they have better pictures and better audio and video, so I'm not even going to try. So instead, go ahead and click on that video, watch the video, and then create and register your account. There is a chance that you are going to have to submit additional documentation. I've had to do this in the past. The video says that it takes up to 48 hours. In my experience, it really depends on when you submit the paperwork. Typically, if it's on like a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, they respond a lot faster. I've gotten responses as quickly as within kind of minutes, 15, 20 minutes or so. There's been other times where it's taken almost an entire day. It's never taken 48 hours, for me at least, but that's what they say in the video. So make sure that you go through this process, register as a student, and then essentially come back to this video once you have access to the educational versions. Okay. Until then, you can't do much. So assuming you have your educational license now and you've signed in, okay, what you're going to do is go back to that same educational page. It's actually right down here. It's the same thing. You'll go through that same step, and we're going to come down here to Revit. Okay. Now there's two options to download. One is Revit, the software. The other one is Revit Generative Design. Revit, the software, is the one that everyone wants to use. I wouldn't recommend this unless you're much more advanced and know the tools that are necessary for the generative design. One thing to note, if you're not aware of this already, Revit does not work on a Mac operating software. So if you have an Apple computer, Revit does not work. Okay, so this only works if you have a PC, Windows. If you do have a Mac computer, there are a few options. One of them is that you purchase, there's a few softwares you could purchase. The most common one is Parallels. So if you go to parallels.com, what this software does, I believe the other one is VMware. Anyways, Parallels is the most common one. What this will do is it'll convert your Mac operating software into Windows. Okay, so now you don't lose all of the Mac. What it does is it allows you to toggle between your Mac operating software and then your new Windows operating software. Essentially, what that means is that you can go back and forth between a Mac computer and a Windows computer all on the same machine. Okay. Now the upside is just that you can have both operating systems. The downside is that you kind of split your hardware. So let's say you have 8 gigs of RAM or 4 gigs of video card. You're also splitting that hardware. So instead of having 8 gigs, you now have 4 gigs on the Mac and 4 gigs on the RAM. So it's not as strong of a computer. The other option is installing Boot Camp. Okay, now my understanding, now I'm not a Mac user, but my understanding is that Boot Camp already comes somewhat installed, or it has the capabilities on all Mac computers, but you have to activate it. And my understanding is that it's not an easy process to activate it. So I would recommend that if you go through boot camp, or if that's your plan, go with someone who's familiar with the process of activating boot camp. Okay, because you also don't want to get in there and mess things up to the point where you can't go back. Now, the upside to boot camp is, one, it's free, and two, you don't have to share your hard drive or any of the products. Oh, sorry, or any of the hardware. So if you have 8 gigs of RAM, then what you would do is you go into boot camp. Boot camp kind of shuts down the computer, and then when it powers up, it'll power up as a Windows computer. And now you have all 8 gigs of RAM accessible to you. Now, why is this important? Is because Revit is a heavy software. So you need a really good, strong computer to be able to run Revit. Okay. It is a 3D modeling software. So think of it as kind of a gaming software. We're doing 3D models, we're orbiting around, we're panning, we're moving things, we're moving 3-dimensional objects around. So you need a computer that can handle all of that. So the best computers for those are the ones that have better, stronger hardware. So if you have to split your hardware with softwares like Parallels, then that's a downside. Right? Okay, so that's it for the Macs. Moving forward, let's get back to downloading Revit. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and download this one. We're going to click right here where it says Get Product, and then I'm going to hit Install. Now we're going to, sorry, before I hit Install, I want to verify it's Windows. You'll notice there's no Mac option. We're going to install 2024 in this version, or the most latest version. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and click Install. There's another option that allows you to download, but in the past few years, the download option just doesn't, the download install just doesn't really work as well. So we're just going to go ahead and hit Install. Now, before you do that, you have to make sure that you have good, reliable internet, because what it's going to do is it's going to install the software using your internet. Okay, so if you're in a location or in a place where the internet is not reliable, then what will end up happening is that it might not properly install, and that can cause headaches down the line, because what you'll end up having to do is eventually uninstall the software and reinstall it because it probably didn't install all of the components correctly. So make sure you have reliable internet. Now, when we hit install, we're going to go, you're going to wait for it to install, and then you're going to go into your downloads folder, and you'll see this application. You're going to double click the application, and it's going to ask, you might have a pop-up that says, do you want to trust this device? We're going to hit yes. Now, I know you probably didn't see that little pop-up because I didn't share it, but it's going to take a minute. All right, let me see if I can go ahead and share this now. Now, I've already installed Revit, so I'm actually not quite sure what's going to pop up right now, but I just wanted to walk you through the steps. Essentially, yeah, you see it says already installed. You're going to have an option. It's going to kind of give you a breakdown on what it's going to install, and then you're going to hit OK and install. Now, the install is going to take, depending on the computer, can take anywhere between 20 to 30, 40 minutes, sometimes even longer. So you're just going to have to leave the computer running. You're gonna have to, yeah, leave the computer running until it actually installs. Okay. Now, once it installs, you don't need to restart your computer, but it's always recommended that you restart your computer after a heavy install. So you're gonna go ahead and just power the computer off and then turn it back on. And once you turn it back on, it's going to ask you, you're gonna go ahead and see it on your desktop. Okay. Once you see it on the desktop, we're going to go ahead and double click, or you're going to go ahead and double click on the icon, and then you're going to open Revit up. Okay. And this is what you're going to see. Okay. This is the beginning interface. This is the Revit interface of what pops up when you open Revit. Now we're going to do a quick little test run before we actually get started and start modeling, because what Revit recently stopped doing was installing its libraries, its family library. And family libraries are key and important to using Revit. Now, I'm sure family libraries doesn't really mean anything to you, but as we progress, you'll understand what these things are. So it's better to just install them now, get it out of the way, and not have to deal with it and try to install it later on when you actually need it. So let's go ahead and we're just going to go into Open under Models, going to left click on there, and I take that back. We're not going to open, we're going to click New. So let's click on New because we want to start a new project. Okay, now we are going to click on this pull down. It really doesn't matter. Let's just use Imperial Multidiscipline for now, and we'll hit OK. It's not the one I like to start off with. It's not the template I like to start off with, but for what we're doing, it really doesn't matter. So we'll hit OK. Now it's always going to take a minute to load. Revit's a very, very heavy file or software, so it always takes a little while. Okay. Now what I want to do is I'm going to come up here to Insert. I'm going to click on Insert, and then you're going to click right here where it says Load Family. Okay. Make sure you guys could see this. Yeah. Now, if it loaded everything, okay, what you'll end up having is a bunch of folders right inside here. Okay. You would have a lot of folders, then it would say doors, or I can't remember what the top ones are, annotations, and so on. Okay. It's going to have a lot of folders. If you have a lot of those folders, great. You could go ahead and skip this next step. But if you're like me and you don't have all of these folders, then it means that the family libraries did not download. So we're going to have to go through that process of downloading those family libraries again. Okay, or not again, but we're going to have to download and install them. So you can go ahead and hit cancel. Let's go back to good old Google. And we're going to type in Revit and then the year that you downloaded, the Revit year that you downloaded, and then you're going to type in content library. Okay, this link always changes. So that's why it's important to just do a Google search 2024 or whichever year it is, content library. We'll go ahead and click on the link. Okay, and really quickly, just so we're gonna click out of this, no thanks. Just so that we understand what we're downloading, families are pre-made three-dimensional objects. Okay, so like a kitchen table, for example, or an exterior door or an interior door, window. These are pre-built three-dimensional objects that we don't have to build, which is going to be great and save us a whole lot of time. Okay, those are called families in Revit. Now there's an entire library of these families that Revit has that we need to download and install. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down here and you're going to find the language that is appropriate for you. Okay, so we're going to scroll down. Let's check this: French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Polish, Russian, Spanish, US English. Here we go. That's the one that we're going to want. Okay, so for these tutorials, it's important that everyone downloads the US English content. Okay? This is libraries in Imperial and Metric. Okay? And this is important because what we're going to be doing in these tutorials is using the Imperial system. Most of the other systems are all just by default Metric. Okay, so if you download any other version, then it's more than likely going to be in Metric, which is not going to work for these tutorials. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here. You'll see how big that file size, 1.9 gigs, almost 2 gigs. That's a heavy file. Okay, so then we're going to go, oh, I can see it's still downloading, so it's not finished downloading. You have to wait for it to finish the download. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to go over to my downloads. And now we can see the new download right there. So I'm going to open this up. Now your file type or the file name might be different, okay? But it's the most recent one. So we'll go ahead and double click. We're gonna wait for it to pop up. Hopefully sometime soon. Here we go. Now it's not being shown. That was quick. You probably didn't see that, but there's a little pop-up window that's gave a kind of a status bar. And we're gonna go now. Oh, okay, so it just gave me a little pop-up making sure that I was okay with this download. And now I get this. Okay, so Autodesk US English content for Revit 2024. We're gonna hit install. And then we're just gonna go ahead and let it do its thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause this recording so that you guys don't have to wait through all of this. Okay, so that took about 2 minutes or so on my computer. Hopefully takes the same more or less on yours. So we're gonna go ahead and hit finish. Okay. Oh, and we're gonna go ahead and let's see. We're gonna go ahead and come back to Revit and go back again to the insert tab. And now we're gonna go to load family. And there we have it. Okay. This is what we want to see. We want to see all of these folders. Okay. So once you have all of these folders, we are done with the install and ready to start modeling.